Good day, folks. This is Greg Judy at Green Pastures Farm. Today, Jan has a couple of questions that she's collected from subscribers that comment on our videos. And so she does that quite often. She'll write down some really good ones, and then everybody gets to hear the answers. So, Jan, what's your first question today?
Okay. Oh, we'll start out with an easy one.
All right.
Okay. How about an update on those trees you planted back a while? I know we're in the middle of January, but you guys did go out and assess them this fall.
Yep. So what you're talking about there is the Hershey honey locust thornless trees. These are a shade food tree. So they put out pods. They don't have the thorns on them, and they are a legume. They fix nitrogen, and they grow pretty well. So we put cages around 50 of them last year. Around the various farms, the boys and I, and then we put a real heavy layer of wood chips. I'm talking 4 or 5, 6 inches deep. So and then it had a tree ring around it, a plastic tree ring to keep the rabbits from chewing off the small tree. And out of 50 that we planted, it's hard to believe that 48 of them made it.
Yeah.
I think part of that was our attention to detail. We put cattle panels around it in a triangular shape, kind of like that. And so the cattle can't get up and rub on them. There's no brush hog that's going to run over them. And that tree, those wood chips didn't hurt it either.
No, it helped keep the moisture in there.
Yeah, and the fescue.
Right.
It killed the fescue. I mean, those wood chips are thick enough, it killed the fescue out. Fescue is a beast. I mean, it'll take all the nutrients away from a young tree. So yeah, we're excited. And we're going to try and maybe get some more this year and just keep going from there.
Yeah. Okay, this was sent before we got really cold but with the polar vortex heading your way, would you be doing anything to prepare the cows, sheep, the dogs? How did you guys handle it, or was it business as usual?
No, it takes special planning when you get into, minus 30 to 40 below zero, and blowing wind and snow and extremely cold temperatures. Folks, we don't have a barn. We don't have a barn on our farm that you can put livestock into. First of all, for a herd the size of ours, it would take a huge, huge barn. And then you got to pack all that hay in there, and you got to pack all the poop out. Not doing that. Animals need to get in out of the wind. And so we had them strategically placed in a large cedar grove on 2 sides, and there was a terrace that ran into that cedar grove, and it had a pond right above the terrace. And then we brought in hay, and we also had a nice bottom down there, so they got a little bit of we strip graze off just a small portion every day of forage along with their hay. Couldn't have had them in a better place. Those animals were comfortable in there. We weren't. It was cold. I mean, it was cold. I know you guys in Canada, I'm sorry, North Dakota, I shouldn't be complaining about cold. I mean, I had a guy the other day made a comment. I'm like, dude, you are one tough hombre to live up there. He was talking about what they had to go through. It's like, oh, I'm not sure I would have survived something like that. But it was cold for Missouri, and so we made sure that our water was in good shape. We were on rock skirts. We chopped the ice, morning and night. Usually at night we didn't have to chop it because the cattle would keep it open all day long drinking. But we didn't have our cows wading in mud or even the edge of the pond to go down and get them a drink. They were on a solid footing. And if you can keep mud from being froze on the hair of your cows, especially from right here's the hoof all the way up to their elbow, keep the mud, don't let that get all muddy and froze on their legs. It reduces their efficiency of staying warm. If a cow's fluffy, they got a good hair coat on them, and they don't have frozen mud on their hair, they're going to do fine. But if they get frozen mud manure all over them, they're going to get cold, and they're going to require more hay and forage to stay warm.
Right. And you guys we knew it was coming. You guys spent like 3 days moving hay and getting the cattle moved to these areas.
That's the other thing I learned the hard way. Don't be trying to move hay in a storm, in really cold, nasty weather, because you get a big bale, 12, 1,500 pound bale up on a truck, and you're going down an icy road or something that, snow or ice on it. You may think that adds weight. It does, but it also adds a lot of weight to push you in the ditch. And I learned that the hard way. So get your food where you need it before this stuff hits. You don't want to be moving hay in an ice or rainstorm or a snowstorm.
Right, right. So I was wondering if the same model could be done with miniature cattle. If I had half the land available, could I use half the size cattle? I imagine minis would still trample the carbon into the soil. Would there be any problems raising mini over full-size cattle?
So for small farms, you're talking about like Dexter and Lowline, some of these smaller framed animals. There's nothing wrong with those. I mean, for smaller farm or ranchettes, I think they're a great tool to use. And that's because you can run more of them and they're going to do fine. Here's the problem. It could be a potential problem. I'm not saying it is a problem. Just make sure that every single one of those you raise, you have a market for it. Never bring a Lowline or a Dexter call animal to a sale barn. Don't do that. You're not going to get anything for it. I mean, they're going to give you about 25% of what all the other cows are bringing, and you'll go broke. So make sure you have a good hamburger market. You can dress that call animal. When I say dress it, you can process it and sell it as grass-finished beef or whatever. But don't get in a position where you're having to bring something like that to the sale barn, because it will take you out off your farm. I had a guy go bankrupt doing that. Yeah, I told him when he started, I said, be careful. When he got up to over 100 head, and he goes, well, I won't have any trouble. I won't have any trouble. Well, he did. He had trouble marketing them. And the banker was up in the stands at the sale barn the day he brought those in there. And he sold him out. He closed on him. He took the loan because he said, I'm done losing money with you. We're done here. And so be careful. Just be careful.
Do you assess farm pastures for prospective buyers?
Yeah, I do. I do consulting. I'll go on to farms. Matter of fact, I've got a couple in line right now already scheduled. But it's something that it's got to be scheduled. Out of state, it can get pretty darn pricey too. Because I mean, go book a flight today. I'm not driving 1,200 miles to look at a prospective farm. I'll fly, but it's got to be, folks. I get a lot of people, and I understand it. I mean, people have 20, 30, 40 acres, and they want me to come to Pennsylvania to show them how to set up their farm. Well, I'm sorry. That's not enough land and opportunity there to get your numbers high enough to make it affordable to have me come out there. I mean, I've had to raise my prices on consulting because that's all I was doing. That's all I was doing. I was just consulting all the time. And Jan and I, we talked it over. We didn't work this thing for all these years for me to be gone all the time. And so the older you get, your time is more precious, I can tell you that. And so I enjoy being here on the farm with the boys and you. And so when I go on a consulting trip, it's going to be somebody that has a big enough farm or enterprise potential that can afford it.
I mean, not that we want to be picky, but we kind of have to be.
It's just the way it is. I mean, unfortunately, I'd love to help people nationwide, but there's not enough Greg Judys, and there's not enough days in the year to do that.
But we do have grazing schools.
That's what I say. It's cheaper to come to a grazing school, and you're going to learn a ton. 3 days of our undivided attention, and we got Ian this year, and we got Abram Bowerman on sheep, and these two schools are going to be having in May are going to be awesome.
So what is the difference between the two different schools?
Well, the advanced grazing school will be Ian and myself. That's May 4th through the 6th. And if you haven't had a chance to be around Ian, he's a treat. He's probably the world's leading, I would say, managed grazing expert in the world.
Right. But that's more for people who are more set up.
Well, it can be. I mean, Jan, we've held these schools for 14 years. We had people come every year that didn't have any land. They didn't have any animals, and they went home and learned with a lot of learning, so they didn't blow a ton of money.
True.
You know the best way to make a small fortune in ranching? Start with a large fortune. Okay?
Excuse me.
Yeah. So make sure you spend the time and some learning before you jump in, because boy, you can lose a lot of money quick in this business.
And then the beginning school with Abram.
Yep. So Abram Bowerman and I will be doing this school. That's the 19th and the 20th. It's a 2-day, and that'll be in May. And we're going to be covering cattle and sheep. And Abram's really good on sheep. That's what he does. I mean, he's a sheep guy. And of course, we'll be having pasture walks out on our farms. I'm going to be covering cattle and setting up all the things that we've done that have worked and haven't worked.
And we do have an excellent fencing demonstration at both schools, because that's a biggie that most people don't get.
Yep. Yeah, we do a lot of hands-on with the fencing, and Isaac and the boys are really good at that, and people get a lot out of that. And water, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Water's a big issue there.
Yep. So with that, I think we better wrap that up. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, guys.
For your questions. And for those of you all new to the channel, hit that subscribe button on the way out. That'd be awesome. And we'll see you next time.